Hello and welcome to the Press Y Podcast, Episode 2. My name's Gunnar, and joining me today is Pat.
Hi, welcome to the second episode. This is also the second take of our intro because Gunnar forgot his name and called himself Pat.
True story, actually. Anyway, so every week we do a weekly podcast where we discuss gaming news and other gaming information from throughout the past week, give our opinions on it, do some analysis, and just share it with you all. So this week we're going to be covering a range of topics with our headline story being a follow-up from last week, actually, about the Joy-Con drifting issues and Nintendo finally having a response to it. But we'll get into that later in the show. To start us off, the first thing we're going to cover is Super Mario Maker 2 is still selling very, 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 very well. This to me, this didn't come as any surprise at all. Famitsu reported that from July 8th to 14th, they sold 54,720 units with a total of 334,000 units, approximate, completely sold, right, for its lifetime sales. And that's a really good momentum. I mean, it's a Nintendo game. It's Mario Maker. You know, Mario Maker still proves that you crowdsource Mario, you're going to get a lot better Mario than you get from something like New Super Mario Bros. Wii U Deluxe for the Nintendo Switch HD. So it's cool to see a really good game like Mario Maker still top the charts. The other thing is that the Nintendo Switch was actually the most searched item for Amazon's Prime Day. I know I did a lot of Prime shopping. I already got my Switch, so no reason to pick up another one there, but let's see the statistics on that. It was like 1.9 million searches in the U.S., followed by just the tagline TV at 1.81 and Amazon Fire Stick at 1.66. This is via hitwise.com. They do market research and analysts on this kind of stuff.
That was pretty surprising to me because the number of times I told my Alexa to search for Vaseline, I would have guessed outnumbered 1.9 million, but I'm not Hitwise. I'm not a titan of the industry, as they say. So, maybe I didn't do it nearly as many times as I thought, but I did get my Vaseline at a reasonable price thanks to Prime Day. This is not an ad.
So your searches seem to outnumber the amount of times you've added it to my cart with my Alexa.
It's your father's.
Yes, my father's Alexa, and he's very, very, very pleased every time he sees that in his cart. Moving on, Nintendo has a plan to compete with streaming. Have you heard about this, Patrick?
I have. I'm the one who sent it to you.
Oh, is that now? Is that true?
Yes.
All right. Well, tell us about it then. Jeez.
So with companies like Sony, Microsoft, and even Google now throwing their hat into the ring, streaming seems to be thought of by many as the future for gaming, future for game development. Doing it in such a way so that like Netflix or Hulu, you simply pay a subscription service fee, and then you can just play the games on any device, anywhere you'd like, and it's all being done on servers far, far away, probably owned by Amazon or Google, and you are playing the game on your TV. And we've seen this with a few games, and Google Stadia coming out, obviously, is a big deal. Shows another competitor. But Nintendo is historically pretty conservative with their hardware and their software. I mean, you look at things even like the Switch, it is more on par with an Xbox 360 or PS3 rather than the current gen. And so it's no surprise that their plan for combating streaming is to not combat streaming, at least for now. They've shown that they're not necessarily opposed to the idea, as they showed with Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Resident Evil 7, both of those stream to the Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, just in Japan, which is kind of interesting. They used a limited market, it seems, in order to do sort of a test run to see if this is an idea that's even palatable for Switch owners. Personally, I'm not huge on streaming until it becomes a tried and true product, something that doesn't have a lot of latency and plays like it is local hardware. And I believe Nintendo is seeing it the same way. Again, they're according to one analyst, what's his name, Matt Piscatella from NDP Marketing. He's the one who actually quoted Nintendo as being very conservative and iterative on their hardware, and he's shown how one device. So take the DS, right? Well, then you had the 3DS, and from the 3DS you had the new 3DS, then to the Switch Lite. It's one step above the other rather than two steps or three steps. And so I don't think Nintendo will ever do widespread streaming until it's a proven product. And with XCloud coming out with Microsoft and as well as Google Stadia, that'll be they're going to be the forerunners for seeing how streaming can actually be effectively utilized. So Nintendo's just doing Nintendo. They're going to continue with their handhelds, continue with their current consoles, at least just from the way that it looks. And honestly, again, just like you said, the Switch is about as powerful as an Xbox 360 or a PS3, at least in terms of raw power, not actual architecture and all that fun techie stuff. But they're still selling millions and millions and millions of units because it is Nintendo. Nintendo just, if they have a good product and they sell the product, they did this with the Wii, they continually show that a very good product doesn't have to be as powerful as its competitors. It's what's behind the product that makes it count. So it's very interesting. And talking further about the future of video games, so Wolfenstein Youngblood, this is old news, but it's something worth touching on with this point because it's coming out. But Wolfenstein Youngblood is coming to the Nintendo Switch. Thank you, Panic Button. They're always, I don't know how they get Doom and Wolfenstein on the Switch. It just blows my mind. But it's coming to the Switch, and for the physical release, they are not releasing it on a game card. So they are actually releasing a physical jewel case.
Cart is short for cartridge.
Yes, it is short for cartridge. They are releasing a physical box, or a jewel case rather, and that jewel case includes a download code. So I personally see this as where I believe this is where retail gaming is going. I think we're going to have just little download cards as well as a similar jewel cases with download codes inside. It's not something I necessarily love, but I do see that this is where this is going because creating essentially a memory card for one game is expensive, and the Switch's games cards, since the Switch hasn't been around for too long, they're still expensive to produce, and especially with games that are above 32 gigabytes or even above just 16 gigabytes, the carts get really expensive, and then that cuts into the overall revenue or the overall profit of either the independent developer or the publisher or whoever is putting the game out there, right? And so that's the cool thing about digital downloads as well as cheaper versions of retail jewel cases and all that, is that they are creating a more affordable way for the company to get their games out there, and they don't have to deal with printing on cards and the expenses involved with that. So they end up making more money.
And this really isn't anything new because if you look at some of the meteor games on the Nintendo Switch, you've seen you also need an SD card. You'll say right there on the box. For example, I think 1-2 Switch could have benefited from this. Plenty of meat to that game. However, I think Nintendo really felt like they were holding themselves back because they didn't want to do this. I personally would like to see a re-release of 1-2 Switch, maybe with either a digital download card or just more content that you would need to download separately. Because I'm a big fan. I'm a 1-2 switcher. That's what they call me. That's what they say. So.
Oh, all right. Well, I actually didn't know they called you that. You should make that your Twitter handle. That's pretty catchy.
No, I won't do that. And I'll tell you why. It's only for my friends. If any fans of this podcast come up to me and say, "Hey, what's up, 1-2 switcher?" I will cancel you IRL. You will be absolutely canceled. Yes, don't worry. You're still a cool gamer. You're still part of that Press Y army, baby. But you will be canceled. You will be absolutely canceled. No exceptions.
No exceptions. All right. Well, moving on from there, GTA 5 now has a casino. All right. Rockstar just looked at EA, looked at Ubisoft, looked at everybody, looked at Activision, and said, "Hold my beer." They said the biggest.
Rockstar Games destroys microtransactions with facts and logic and 1-to-1 chip to dollar ratios.
Yeah. So you can actually bet real money in the GTA casino. Now, like Patrick just said, it is a 1-to-1 chip ratio. So you spend $1, you get one chip, and you can spend up to $50,000 an hour. They limit you only to $50,000.
Which I think is stupid. Like, if I didn't want to spend any money, I would just eat at McDonald's.
Yeah, so if I did want to spend a bunch of money, I should be able to spend $1 million in an hour if I want, but I don't know why they
Which I
limit
could
it.
do because I'm rich.
But anyway, so there is a real casino in GTA, and to clarify that, there is no monetary value to be gained out of the casino. That's how they're able to, keep it away from actual betting laws. It's not real betting; it's virtual betting. But you can get your good old Lambo and a rocket launcher and all that fun stuff. And it's crazy. This is the end all be all of microtransactions, and I'm not big on microtransactions, but just with like the grandeur of this is just hilarious to me.
Just to be clear, Gunnar said you could buy a rocket launcher and or a Lamborghini. I'd like to point out that is not for AFK, only for in-game.
Yeah, just for in game, that's how they're able to get away with it. So it's interesting seeing where all these companies keep trying to monetize their games past the $60 point. Obviously, GTA Online is just a sprawling online game with tons of microtransactions because there's so much to do. It is very, very feature rich, and I would say it's something that does deserve microtransactions past the $60 limit. But then you have loot boxes in something like Call of Duty or even Battlefield or whatever, or even just purchasing items directly, like with V-Bucks in Fortnite or something. There's so many different ways that companies are trying to monetize their games past just the $60 buy-in or whatever dollar buy-in. And I honestly don't have any problems with microtransactions as long as it doesn't alter the gameplay experience. Like if I buy a skin in Fortnite and it turns me green, but I have no competitive advantage over someone who's blue, I don't care. Good for
You
them.
could hide in with the bushes better, so you actually would have a competitive advantage.
you
You
know
would know
what
that
I
if you were good at games.
Anyway, yeah, so as long as there's no competitive advantage, I'm perfectly fine with it. But then, you see games like, I believe it was Metal Gear Solid Survive, which is a joke of a game, but they made people buy extra save slots. Like they made them buy extra save slots, which is it's ridiculous. That's such a direct monetization tactic too, and it was widely criticized, right? And then you had the whole Battlefront 2 fiasco. So it's companies with microtransactions. Companies seem to be playing with fire, and whenever again, I think Fortnite honestly does it best with the skins and the dances and all that because it doesn't really alter gameplay. Maybe just slightly, but not in a way that gives someone a serious competitive advantage. And I believe that's the right way to do it. But whenever you see it show up in like single player games or in ways where you can just destroy everybody, I'm not a fan. Absolutely not a fan.
Well, and Epic Games has shown that model is sustainable, or at least can make you a profit, because Fortnite was obviously unbelievably successful and made Epic Games plenty of money. So it's not like you need to just hang these things over people's heads and say you have to pay for this. You can just offer it as a fun little bonus, and people will still be willing to pay.
And also the interesting thing about Fortnite is actually the culture that they built behind all the items. So first of all, Fortnite is very popular, and so that establishes it in the culture. But then you have dances, you have skins, all that. Especially the dances. Like when I was at camp earlier this summer as a counselor, and all the little kids were doing little Fortnite dances. Well, I mean, it's so ensconced in the culture, in at least in America and other Western countries. It's very, very prolific, and whenever you have something like that so grounded in the culture, then of course kids are going to buy it. They see their friends doing one of the dances. Well, they want to have that dance in Fortnite. They want to know how to do it in real life. They see a cool skin that's $20 and their friend buys it. Of course they're going to want to buy it. And so I have seen some regulators in the U.S. considering looking at loot boxes and some other types of microtransactions. So it is interesting to see where possible government regulation may go as far as the subject is concerned. But I think as long as companies are responsible and don't pull a Battlefront 2 and make you essentially pay for the rest of the game, then I think they'll be fine. But it is an interesting model to do gaming, and it's very prolific.
Well, and I think the way Rockstar Games is doing it in GTA 5 is a relatively healthy way to do it. Like you said, similar to Fortnite, it's not providing any advantage. It's not hiding any of the actual game behind it. This is kind of a fun little bonus game that you can buy into if you would like. If you don't, you just don't buy into this casino, just like you wouldn't buy GTA 5 if you're not into having fun. It's that simple. So I think this is, if you're going to have microtransactions, if you're going to have, pay to play for extra content in games or for content in games in general, I think this is one of the healthier ways to do it. Obviously, I don't care because I'm rich, but for some people, that kind of is a bummer to have to pay for certain things. And that's a big thing in the mobile game industry is these, they call them free to wait, free to play.
Freemium.
Freemium. It's just kind of a trick of the tongue, which I'm very good at. But I've heard many people complain about this, and I think the way Rockstar Games is going about it in GTA 5 is probably one of the best, if not the best, overall way to do it.
So moving on from this, because there's some other stuff I want to talk about. OpenAI, an artificial intelligence researcher and developer, just partnered with Microsoft. Can you guess why they partnered with Microsoft? Gaming, you're right.
Microsoft is a computer company.
Microsoft is a computer company. Yeah, so actually it's not for gaming like I said in there. It's for...
He was joking. He got y'all.
That was a pretty good one.
He's been a jokester since day one.
So Microsoft and OpenAI are partnering up, and Microsoft is actually letting OpenAI use its cloud service. So it's the Azure cloud service.
It's actually pronounced Azure. Yeah, I'm rich.
Yeah. So this is the same service that XCloud is going to be running on. It's also the same service that recently Sony partnered with Microsoft to use to improve their servers and improve their system performance and all that. So it's interesting to see another company partner with Microsoft to use their cloud services, and this is really boding well in Microsoft's favor. As next year XCloud is going to be coming out, supposedly. And if the next Xbox console generation is primarily cloud-based, or at least partially cloud-based, this is potentially showing that their servers are going to be something else. AI applications aren't necessarily the same as gaming applications at all, but it is showing that Microsoft does have a good and steady product. So it's going to be interesting to see how they stack up against Google Stadia, which, in my opinion, I think that I believe many will agree with me here, is that Microsoft is actually going to really destroy Stadia for a while whenever they're competing head-to-head, because Microsoft has Game Pass. What does Google have? They have a good cloud service. That's awesome. Yeah, you can be watching a YouTube video about Assassin's Creed Odyssey and then pick up and play Assassin's Creed Odyssey. That's really cool. You can't do that with xCloud. But with xCloud, you can pay $10 or $15 a month for Game Pass and get all the Microsoft library as well as new games added every single month, and they're proving to have a better value than Stadia so far, because with Stadia you still have to buy full price games. Yeah, even if Google does a subscription service, whatever they do to compete, Microsoft already has business relationships with publishers and games of their own published by themselves. So there's really, really big potential for xCloud simply just because of games. Again, it's another situation of, maybe xCloud doesn't do 8K 120 frames a second like Google is claiming Stadia will eventually reach, but it has games. Just like that's how Sony is selling the PlayStation, how Nintendo is selling the Switch. Keep in mind, the PlayStation is more powerful than Xbox. But
for example, PlayStation has Little Big World. Microsoft has Banjo-Kazooie, Nuts and Bolts, best game on the platform. Please at me.
Anyway, yeah. So that's the point. Is better games lead to generally, not always, but most of the time, better games lead to better sales, because people are going to want to play the game. Ultimately, resolution, graphics, all that stuff is awesome. I'm a PC gamer as well as someone who plays on my Switch. So, I really like pushing games as far as they go and pushing my hardware as far as it can go. But having a really, really fun game like Breath of the Wild, I'll happily play that at 900p or whatever. I'll play Xenoblade at 328p or however low it gets in Switch's handheld mode, just because it's such a fun game. It may not look the greatest at times, but I'm having a really good time, and I'd rather be having a really good time than looking at a shiny turd.
Yeah, for example, would you rather have a really hot wife who you don't love or an ugly wife who you do love? The answer should be simple. Same thing, really.
Yeah.
What would you rather have, Gunnar?
Yeah. All right, moving.
No, don't dodge the question. Tell us what you'd rather have.
The ugly wife.
He's only saying that because he knows listeners are here. Gunnar's a slut. It's well known.
It is well documented.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay, sorry to derail you.
No. You're good, man. That's why you're here. So I'm the smart one. You're the funny one.
Like some of my friends said, some reviews came in for our last podcast, and people were saying every time that Pat guy says something funny, which is pretty much constantly, Gunnar
Almost
sounds like a deer in headlights. And I said, you know what? You're right. That's what he normally sounds like. So we're trying to work on his banter.
It's okay.
Just be patient.
We're new. I'm new.
What?
Yeah. Anyway, all right. So we're going to move on to our big story for the week. And this is actually a follow-up story from last week with the Joy-Cons being reported to have drifting issues, which we've known about for a long time, but it's finally becoming mainstream. So The Verge reported that that's the wrong source. Vice reported of an internal memo for for Nintendo's customer service to start replacing Joy-Con parts, the joysticks, for free. So even if you had a Joy-Con repair in the past, you can now be refunded for that repair, as well as get any of your Joy-Cons that have drift fixed. So we're finally seeing a response from Nintendo, and I think this is a very, very smart response because it avoids a settlement, it avoids a lawsuit, at least in the meantime, because they're showing some kind of duty of care and wanting to remedy the issue. They've acknowledged the issue, and that's extremely important. But, we're going to be getting better Switch products, more importantly. So now we'll have, hopefully, Switch sticks that last longer. That is assuming that the part that they're putting in there is actually a new part, and that, like, the Switch Lite and the new Joy-Cons coming out are having this part as well, because it could, in all likelihood, be just the same old thing. And then another 2 years or another year to 2 years, whenever they start drifting again, we'll hear people complaining once more. So it could be an ever-going problem, and maybe this is just a temporary solution, a Band-Aid, until they can actually get a handle on this. So I am interested to see, and there's channels that are going to be doing teardowns and reviews and looking through both the Switch Lite and the new Joy-Cons to see if there is any change, because it does need to get fixed. It really needs to get fixed.
Yeah, this is definitely a step in the right direction. Although I'm not convinced that it's necessarily the perfect fix yet, because, like Gunnar was saying, they're repairing them for free. They're not charging anything at all for Joy-Con repairs. They're not even supposed to ask questions about how it broke when it comes to the Joy-Cons drifting.
Or warranty or
anything like that. You send them in, you get them fixed. And even if you sent them in to get them fixed earlier, you'll be getting a refund for that. So that is definitely a good thing. It'll probably stop the lawsuit. They won't have to pay any settlements.
Cheaper than a settlement. Yeah.
Exactly. It's cheaper than a settlement. But if they're not going to replace the part, if they're not going to do more R&D to put out new Joy-Cons that actually work, I think it's just kind of, putting lipstick on the pig. Like, sure, if you want to not have drifting, that's an option. Just give up your Joy-Cons for, 2 weeks, whatever it takes. They'll fix it for free, and you'll get them back. But they're not going to be any better in the long run. And like Gunnar said, hopefully we'll see some teardowns. I'm sure we will, and we can see if there are new parts. If you're interested in teardowns, I'm actually going to be doing a video on my own channel that I'm going to create at some point, where I'm just dumping gallons of hot piss on my Switch to see what happens. It doesn't really have anything to do with Joy-Cons, but, shameless self-plug. What can I say? I'm a Gemini, so...
So yeah, again, hopefully we'll actually genuinely see a fix with this issue. But we'll know probably in the coming weeks, and hopefully before we get the teardowns of the new products, we'll actually get teardowns of Joy-Cons that have their units replaced. So it's going to be interesting going forward to see what happens. But yeah, that's it as far as our news coverage this week. But with every Press Y podcast, we have to press Y, don't we? So this week, Gunnar, am pressing Y for the 8-bit do, 8-bit do, however you want to say it, SN30 Pro. So I actually picked up one of these during Amazon Prime Day. There was a lightning deal, and I got it for about $10 off. And I've been looking at it for a long time. It's a really cool controller, really, really cool controller. And I really didn't have a genuine reason to get it until Mario Maker came out. And I was using the D-pad on the Pro Controller. And I have one of the first Pro Controllers, so it doesn't have the little divot in the middle that the D-pad pivots on. But, I was making do. And it wasn't very fun. I was dying a lot because I like to try the hard levels. I can't actually beat too many of them, but I like to see how far I can get. That's how I have the most fun in the game. And I knew I needed to get something better. So, even just using the game in handheld and playing with the Joy-Con stick felt better than the D-pad on my Pro Controller.
They were saying playing Mario Maker 2 with the D-pad on the Pro Controller was the Dark Souls of controllers.
It really feels like it. Like, it genuinely feels like it because it's so inaccurate. It's so easy to just slip and go the other direction. So again, I've been looking at the SN30 Pro for a long time, and I finally had a reason to get it. That and the discount, of course. So I got it. Played about 2 hours of Mario Maker the other night, and I loved it. It didn't make me a better player, but it did make me stop missing more precise jumps that I needed to get. And I was running through one of the little Kaizo tutorials with the shell jumps and all that, and I felt like I was able to hit them a lot more efficiently and a lot better than I had in the past because I felt like I had a tighter controller. And I really, really enjoyed this thing. So I played about 2 hours of Mario Maker, and then I booted up a couple other games for a few minutes just to see what the analog sticks are like on it. And it's not great. I mean, the sticks feel awesome. They're really good joysticks. But I was playing Mario Odyssey, and I just didn't feel like I had great control over Mario. And I think what's lacking is it's essentially just a glorified Super Nintendo controller. So it doesn't have handles on the side to really position your thumbs well on the sticks. So there is a SN30 Pro Plus, I believe it's called. It's essentially the SN30 Pro, but with handles, coming out in about a month. But this one interested me more because of the portability of it. But I really just want to use it for 2D games, or if I travel or I go somewhere and for some godforsaken reason I'm using tabletop mode, the sticks aren't that bad. Or when friends come over and they want to use the Pro Controller, I can just use this. They're tolerable. They're not my favorite. Again, I wish it had handles so it could be more accurate, but it's still a really good controller. The gyroscope works really well. All of that, and I'm really, really enjoying it. This is what I'm pressing Y for this week.
This is what I'm pressing Y for this week. This is kind of related to the semi-recent announcement of the direct sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and just kind of how that relates to the future of Zelda. I am a huge fan of the Legend of Zelda series. I would easily say it's my number one game series. And one aspect of Breath of the Wild that disappointed me, like so many others, while it's a fantastic game, I wish there was more story. And a lot of people didn't like the story in the first place. I actually loved it. The character development for Zelda, I think, was excellent. Princess Zelda in particular, specifically, just her whole journey trying to find this sealing power that she cannot seem to access, and the dichotomy with her and Link, where Link was able to just pick up the Master Sword and go, go, go. She was searching for what's supposed to be her purpose, and I thought that was awesome. But it also got me thinking, there aren't a lot of great stories in the Zelda franchise. There are a few that are pretty good. Ocarina is just a classic. The story, it's basic, though. That's the thing. With all of them, they're all very basic. You have Ganondorf, who wants to rule Hyrule, and you have Link and Zelda, who are good guys, and that's it. It's that simple. But the one Zelda game that I hadn't played was Wind Waker, because I don't have a GameCube and I don't have a Wii U. When Gunnar went off to camp, like you mentioned earlier, to be a counselor, he let me borrow his Wii U, and I picked up a copy of Wind Waker HD, and I finally played it, and it made me realize how fantastic Zelda can be with a story. The story, obviously, is still relatively basic, but the character development of Ganondorf in particular is so amazing. The ending of that game was one of the best endings of any game I've ever played. That is easily my favorite Ganon/Ganondorf of any Zelda game. It's fantastic. The character development, and just, he actually has motivations this time. He's not just, I want the Triforce of Power because I am big and strong. It's a lot more than that. And with the sequel to Breath of the Wild 2, as a lot of people are calling it, it won't be called that. I know it for a fact. They're saying it's going to be darker than Majora's Mask. Oh, that's another one with a good story. Shit, I forgot about Majora's Mask. Anyway, Majora's Mask also has a great story, but Wind Waker I still think is better. However, if they're going for kind of this Majora's Mask tone, which Aonuma has said they are, I really hope they kind of take that Wind Waker model and actually take time to develop their characters besides Link or Zelda. It's not a super original reason to press Y, but that's not why we're here. We're here because we like pressing Y.
So thank you guys for joining us on the second episode of the
Wait, hang on. I forgot to mention this. I was going to press Y for it, and then I forgot. I have a copy of Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze for the Wii U. Funky mode not included. And that's actually good because normally when I sell games, I say no pussies allowed. But this kind of gets rid of it because funky mode is for pussies and pussies only. So anyway, I have a copy of Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze. And I really need the cash. So if you're a listener, go ahead and drop a comment if you're willing to buy it. I really need the cash. I'll sell it for about 45. No game case included. I can put it in like an envelope or something if you want, but please, I need the cash, please.
Yeah, no, don't reach our business email. Anyway,
I kept saying I was rich. That was a cover up. I'm sorry. I don't know why I did that.
Anyway,
please.
Thank you guys so much for joining us on this week's episode of the Press Y podcast with Gunnar and Pat. Again, we appreciate you guys listening. Remember to like and subscribe.
Ring that groovy little bell, baby.
Groovy little bell, baby.
Woo! Ding, ding, ding.
Ding, ding. All right. Thank you guys.